We are here, together again, to look beyond the surface of the legends. Our journey takes us back to the heart of forgotten Africa, to a time before clocks and calendars, to the quiet land of Tantuma. Long, long ago, far from the flat savanna, in a land where the mountains pierced the clouds like the fingers of a sleeping giant, lay the kingdom of Tantuma. We speak often of Tantuma, the elevated place, as a kingdom of high, jagged cliffs and deep, shaded valleys, a place where the homes were built into the sheer rock face, connected by delicate, strong bridges. It was small in land, yes, but boundless in its spirit and rich in the quiet resources that sustained life. In this small, prosperous corner of the world, life was peaceful, guided by the patient wisdom of the spider totem. Yet, even where peace ruled, there was always one heart that knew no rest.
In Tantma lived a woman named Rael. She was beloved by all, and most fiercely by her husband. But Rael carried a sorrow that clung to her like a wet cloth. She was barren. Month after month, year after year, the fruit of the womb was denied to her. Her husband was a gentle man who would spend hours simply holding her hand, reminding her that their love was enough. But for Rael, the yearning was a desperation that drove her to the edge of the known village, constantly seeking remedies, advice, and prayers that always ended in the same deep well of hopelessness. One afternoon, Rael went down the familiar winding path to the river to fetch water. The path cut through a dense, quiet forest, and it was there, walking against the sunlight filtering through the trees, that she saw her. An old woman, bent with the weight of years, walked slowly along the path, leaning heavily on a staff stick carved from dark wood. Rael, respectful as always, paused to offer a gentle greeting as she passed. She walked a few paces before something happened that made her feet freeze upon the earth and goosebumps prickle her skin. The strange woman, whom Rael had never met in her life, spoke her name. Rael, the voice was like dry leaves rustling, ancient, but clear. She spun around, shock gripping her. The old woman looked directly into her eyes, and Rael felt a current of power she could not explain. The old woman offered no comfort, only a pronouncement: "The gods and the goddesses of the land have heard your cry. We will grant your desire." Rael couldn't utter a sound, caught between fear and impossible hope. The old woman continued, her voice heavy with the weight of destiny. "In a year's time, you will carry a child. But in exchange, that child will be destined to be a vessel for the future." Before Rael could even stammer a question about what a vessel meant, the old woman turned and continued her slow walk deeper into the dense forest. Rael watched her go, then, curiosity overcoming her shock, she looked back to the path where the woman had been, to see if she could still catch a glimpse. But the old woman was gone. Vanished. Not merely out of sight, but vanished into the space of a single breath. It was impossible, even for the swiftest runner. Fear and an overwhelming sense of the divine gripped Rael. She rushed to the river, fetched her water, and ran home, the encounter vibrating in her soul. 2 full moons passed after Rael met the spirit of the forest. And then, the impossible happened: she became pregnant. The joy in her small household was immeasurable. Rael, who had known such constant sorrow, was finally filled with the serene light of hope. After 9 full moons, she gave birth to a healthy, handsome baby boy. The couple named him Ayoran, a name that meant joyful light. He was a bright spark in their lives, a miracle born not just of love, but of a dark, cryptic prophecy. But the ancient whispers of Tantuma, the ones that spoke of the mother of silk and the price of extraordinary gifts, knew better. They knew that Ayoran was not just a child of joy. He was the vessel promised to the future, carrying a burden his parents could not yet fathom, a power waiting for the perfect time to awaken.
Ayoran grew among the high cliffs, his childhood filled with the love of his parents and the steady rhythms of the silk weavers. But the prophecy was true. He was a vessel, and the ancient spirit of the land was beginning to fill him. He was a boy of quiet, nervous energy. He didn't run, he darted. He didn't sit still, he perched. He possessed an impossible agility. He could climb the sheer, slick walls of their cliff homes without handholds, his body clinging to the rock face with an uncanny grip. He moved with a breathtaking grace that defied gravity, treating the vertical plane as effortlessly as the floor. The people saw him not as a climber, but as part of the rock itself. His gift was never used for vanity. Ayoran was a silent servant. If a basket of supplies was accidentally dropped onto a precarious ledge, a grown man would spend an hour rigging ropes. The boy would simply walk the wall in a few seconds to retrieve it. He was always securing vital silk lines for the community, ensuring the safety of others before they even knew they were in danger. And beyond his body, there was the unique alertness that haunted him. He possessed the whisper of the web, a preternatural instinct that alerted him to the slightest imbalance or threat. A stone dislodging miles away on a high mountain pass, Ayoran would suddenly stop his work, his body rigid, and point upward, giving the warning that saved the caravan below. This sense of danger was his constant companion, his inner alarm. Ayoran's quiet heroism defined his youth. But the true test came with the Black Curse. A devastating illness began to creep through the valley's cattle, threatening starvation. A slow, certain death for Tantuma. The healers knew the cure lay in a rare, glowing orchid that only grew high up on the silent peak. A massive, ice-slicked mountain that towered over the kingdom, considered truly impossible to climb. The community prepared for a rescue mission they believed was certain death. But Ayoran, now a young man whose movements were as swift and silent as the mother of silk herself, stepped forward. "I will go," he said quietly. "I will retrieve the cure." With a quiet determination that brooked no argument, he walked to the base of the sheer, impossible peak. The villagers watched, breathless, as he began to walk straight up the cold stone, scaling the massive cliff face not with ropes or ladders, but by simply holding fast to the rock, moving with the perfect, unwavering precision of a hunting spider. He reached the summit, gathered the glowing orchid, and descended before the sun set, saving Tantuma. They called him a miracle, the guardian of the vertical world. But in their joy, a subtle fear was born. They loved his salvation, but they feared his methods. They saw his power not as the joyous light promised to Rael, but as something too strange, too silent, too much like the natural predator that spins its trap. A chilling uncertainty began to replace their reverence. They realized the prophecy meant Ayoran wasn't just theirs, he was a vessel for a future they could not control.
When Ayoran climbed the silent peak and returned with the cure, he felt something new and dangerous: invincibility. The whole kingdom praised him, and that praise made his head swell. He thought, "I have beaten the impossible mountain. I can do anything." He had mastered the stone and silenced the whispers of fear, but he had not mastered his own heart. Ayoran, now full of confidence, began to rely too much on his amazing gifts for everything. He would build the huge rope bridges with lightning speed, often doing the work of 20 men in just one morning. He was showing off his power just to see how fast he could go. One day, his father, the patient silk weaver, asked him to carry a very large, heavy load of raw silk quickly across the valley. It was a route that was risky and usually required 3 strong, slow, and very careful men. Ayoran laughed inside. "Why be slow when I am the fastest thing alive?" he thought. He chose a dangerous shortcut, a narrow path of brittle stone along the cliffs that no one used. He decided to carry the entire load himself, pushing his body to its absolute fastest limit, just to prove he could. As he sped along that old path, his whisper of the web, his internal alarm for danger, did warn him. It screamed inside his head, telling him he was too heavy, too fast, and the path was weak. But Ayoran pushed the warning away. "I am Ayoran, the guardian. The stone must obey me," he believed. In a terrible instant, the earth disagreed. The huge speed of his steps and the sheer weight of the silk he carried became too much for the rock. The old stone finally broke, crumbling beneath his powerful grip. Ayoran was strong enough to save himself and stop the silk from falling into the deep chasm. But the collapse sent a great rush of rock and dust crashing straight down the cliff face. In that same moment, a young boy from the village, a child of one of the families Ayoran loved, was playing innocently below. The rock slide caught him. The child was not killed by the silk or by a rival's arrow, but by the careless accident of a power that forgot its own strength. The tragedy hit Ayoran harder than any stone. The boy's parents stood over their loss, looking at Ayoran with a deep, silent sadness that was far heavier than rage. The villagers saw everything. They didn't see the hero who saved their lives. They saw a strong man performing a casual, reckless act that cost an innocent life. The fear they had nursed before now became a dreadful, clear truth. Power without care is the greatest danger in the world. Ayoran's heart broke. He knew he had never meant to harm anyone, but his belief that his power meant he could ignore caution had led to a death he could have easily prevented if he had simply walked slowly with the other men. Filled with guilt, he went to Elder Kamu, the wisest man in Tantuma, and confessed his terrible mistake. The elder did not scold him. He only repeated the old woman's prophecy: "You were destined to be a vessel for the future." "You thought this meant strength, Ayoran," the elder said, his voice slow and heavy. "But a vessel isn't just a strong pot to hold power. It is a holder of responsibility. Your strength is so great that when you make a small, casual mistake, the consequences are enormous. Your power is no longer just yours. It belongs to every person you could save, or accidentally harm." The death of that child was the moment Ayoran's perfect balance shattered forever. He understood his gift was not a joyful light but a terrible, heavy burden. He was given the ability to weave and climb like the mother of silk, but he had also inherited the potential for silent, devastating ambush.
The burden of that innocent life weighed upon Ayoran. He could not eat, he could not rest. His immense strength felt like a curse, and the applause that once greeted him now echoed with the shouts of fear. He realized his presence, which was meant to be a blessing, was now a constant source of dread for the people of Tantuma. He was a walking danger capable of catastrophic errors. Broken by guilt, Ayoran knew he had to do more than just leave. He had to change. He had to find the wisdom that his strength lacked. He understood he couldn't protect his people if he didn't first understand the true meaning of his power. He left his home, not running away, but seeking truth. He traveled higher than the silk weavers had ever dared to climb, beyond the silent peak, searching for the legendary sage of the high caves. This was a wise woman, said to live above the clouds, who could read the threads of fate woven by the mother of silk herself. It took him many weeks, using his incredible climbing skill to reach the impossible altitude. He finally found her cave, a humble, wind-battered opening high above the world. The sage, whose name was Mali, did not look up when he arrived. She was ancient, frail, and entirely unimpressed by his strength. Ayoran fell to his knees, laying his guilt at her feet, telling her he was a failure, gifted great power, but only using it to kill. Sage Mali finally looked at him. She told him that power was just muscle. It was neither good nor evil. The web of life was what truly mattered. She explained that Ayoran had the ability to feel every thread in that web, the joy, the danger, the fear. He had heard the warning that day, but he let his arrogance break the thread of a young life. For the next year, Ayoran did not practice his speed or his climbing. Instead, he simply listened. Mali taught him that responsibility was the anchor that stopped the vessel from drifting, and that humility was the true grip, far stronger than any clinging to stone. To be a vessel for the future, she taught him, meant his life was no longer his own. It belonged entirely to the balance of the world. Mali then laid out his path. He must become a shadow, an unsung hero. He must protect without ever being thanked and ensure balance without ever seeking praise. She warned him that if he were seen, fear would return, and if he were thanked, his arrogance would return. His true peace, she instructed, would only come when his power was used in total silence. Ayoran left the high caves transformed, his mind enriched by Mali's ancient wisdom. He did not return to his parents, knowing his sight would only remind them of their sorrow. Instead, he took the lesson of the sage and wove it into his new existence. He vanished into the vertical shadows of the cliffs and valleys. He became Tantuma's secret keeper. If a bridge was weak, it was repaired in the middle of the night by an invisible hand. If a thief threatened the village, the intruder would be found hanging gently, tangled but unharmed, in an invisible web of silk high above the ground by morning. He used his amazing speed and sense, not to show off, but to become a blur of rescue, a whisper of protection that was never seen or thanked. In this dedicated, silent service, Ayoran finally found his peace. He was correcting his wrongs by dedicating his life to flawless, unseen protection. He became the living myth, the shadow of the web, ensuring the kingdom of Tantuma never faced catastrophe again, yet never knowing the face of the protector who saved them.
Ayoran, the silent guardian, lived his life not in the sun, but in the shadows. He understood that to save his people, he had to become a memory, a whisper of protection woven into the high cliffs of Tantuma. The tales of his secret protection traveled far. Traders and travelers heard fragmented stories of the man-spider who walked on air, leaving thieves tangled in invisible silk nets. The incredible agility, the wall-clinging strength, and the preternatural whisper of the web all became features of an ancient, mysterious myth. Over centuries, as names were confused and lands forgotten, this story landed in the modern world. Scholars took the core truth, the hero who had immense power but was heartbroken by the consequences of his arrogance, and gave him a new face and a new name, Spider-Man. The hero who swings through the dizzying towers of concrete today is not a new invention. He is the direct legacy of Ayoran, the boy born of prophecy, who learned the most painful lesson of all: true heroism is not defined by the speed with which you can climb, but by the quiet humility and difficult choice to protect without ever seeking praise. Ayoran vanished, but his purpose remained. He is the unsung truth behind the mask, the eternal example that with great power must come great, silent responsibility.